Hi. My name's Bryn Durgan. I'm the director. Sounds a little loud, but my name's Bryn. I'm the director of programming here at Bookstore One, and I know some of you have been to plenty of our programs before, but if it's your first time in, welcome. And we do a whole lot of programming here. So we have book clubs, author talks, book launches like we're having today, Spanish literary salons, live radio theater, a little bit of everything. So if you've not already, you can sign up for our mailing list right downstairs at the front. But we are here on the birthday of a book. And before we get started, I will tell you a little bit about the shape of the evening. So I will be in conversation with our authors of the hour, and then we will turn it over to all of you for questions before we go into a signing. And there is a cookie cake with the cover of the book on it. And if you've not, that deserves a round of applause, I think. And if you haven't yet bought the book, it's right downstairs at the register, so you can just go on down after we're through and get one, and then they're happy to sign them. So let me introduce you to our authors. I'm going in order of seniority. So Julie C. Henry is driven to lift leaders up across industries and across generations so they can more fully lead in the way they were born to lead. She channels her experience as a senior leader in zoos and aquariums, along with decades as a keynote speaker, facilitator, consultant, and leadership coach in more than 40 different industries, into teachings that are as relevant and practical as they are memorable and fun. As the host of the Leadership Tales with Tales podcast, along with her co-hosts, Tasman and Kepler, she facilitates unedited, unfiltered conversations about leadership with guests in the field, in the studio, or anywhere in between, conversations that are always wild. Julie kicked off her career at Chicago's John G. Shedd Aquarium and Cincinnati Zoo and Botanical Garden, and then became a senior leader at Mote Marine Laboratory and Aquarium in Busch Gardens, Tampa Bay. She holds an MA in Communication from the University of South Florida, an executive program certificate in Sustainable Business Leadership from Green Mountain College, and a postgraduate diploma in Outdoor Education from the University of Otago, earned as a Rotary Ambassadorial Scholar to New Zealand. She earned an undergraduate degrees in zoology and education from Miami University of Ohio. Julie was selected as a Toyota Together Green Fellow of the National Audubon Society and was chosen to participate in the Disney's Animal Kingdom World Wildlife Fund Biodiversity Leadership Institute. At her core, Julie is a kid from Chicago who grew up dreaming of the sea. That dream led her to adventures around the world, eventually calling Sarasota, Florida home with her two teenagers, Tasman and Kepler. With a heart for leaders and a passion for wildlife and wild places, she is fired up to continue shaking up leadership stereotypes and fully championing each person's unique impact and influence on the world. So we can give her a round of applause before we go. Wow. Very impressive. I was going to read her short bio, but I was like, this is too impressive not to read the whole thing. Tasman Henry is 18 years old and a freshman at Florida Gulf Coast University. She loves science, specifically physics and chemistry, and took advantage of every leadership growth opportunity she could in high school, serving as a National Honor Society committee leader, executive student body chaplain, and Blazer Cafe chair of marketing. She's a 2025 graduate of the elite Red Troop of the Sailor Circus Academy in Sarasota, Florida, where she performed as an aerialist on the Spanish web, hammock, and chandelier, as an acrobat on the Russian swing, and as a stilt walker in numerous shows and parades. In the summer of 2024, she spent 2 weeks with Outward Bound, living in an indigenous village in Panama, learning to scuba dive, kayaking for miles, and helping with sea turtle conservation, a trip that forever changed her perspective on life. She is currently majoring in physics and minoring in earth and space science at FGCU. When not actively leading or socializing, she can be found cheering on the FGCU basketball team, reading outdoors, or enjoying a coffee at her favorite cafe. So we can give her a round of applause. And Kepler Henry. Kepler Henry is 16 years old and a junior in high school. He is an entrepreneur and artist at heart with a passion for drawing and has enjoyed growing his skills through the pre-college immersion program at Ringling College of Art and Design. Kepler has lots of ideas for his future, many of which involve living in a cabin in the woods, but he also knows he has plenty of time to figure out what he wants to do with his life. For now, he is enjoying driving his Jeep around town and simply being 16. He's a member of the elite Red Troop of the Sailor Circus Academy in Sarasota, Florida, where he performs as a clown, unicyclist, and acrobat on the Russian swing. An adrenaline seeker, Kepler is looking forward to bungee jumping and learning how to perform on the Wheel of Death in the circus as soon as possible. So let's give him the warmest welcome, too. I know, right? Congratulations, really, to all three of you. It's a huge thing you've done. So I want to start by asking you, how did this begin? How did this project start? How did you decide to work together?
I guess I'll take. Did I just turn it off? I guess I'll take that one. And I apologize for being teary because this whole thing is really emotional in the best way. Because I think if you would have asked me a few years ago, even if I would have been an author, the answer would have been no. And then to do it alongside my kids is really just a dream come true. But also because I really felt what happened is I wrote the first book, and that was my college senior year thesis. So it started in 1996. And then in 2021, I published the first book, and then immediately young people, and some of them who are in the room, young people wanted to read it, but they didn't relate to some of the animals, some of the examples, the way that I wanted them to, the way that they wanted them to. So they basically were saying to me, and the adults in their lives were saying to me, like, we need something to help young people, because the truth is that young people are leaders now, and I get really frustrated when we talk down to them, or I learn just as much from these kids as they learn from me. So it worked out that we decided to do it together, and I don't know if they knew what they were in for, but it's been a journey.
And it all started, of course, all of these stories are based in the animal world, but of course they're metaphors for human behavior. So I'm wondering, what is it that you can say by using animals as an example that you just can't with humans, and what makes that speak to us?
You forget. Do you have an answer for that one? Yeah, well, while Kepler's thinking of his answer, because I think he has one here, I think that animals make it... I think animals make it easier to tell the truth, and we can't hide behind it, right? Like, if you want to tell somebody, like, you can start studying for your test at 10 o'clock at night after you've gone to soccer practice and tennis practice and not eaten dinner, and then, by the way, jumped on the computer for a few hours and then stay up till 2. You can do that, of course. It's not going to work out very well, right? But if I tell you that story through bighorn sheep and talk about resilience in a different way, then you can't fight me as much on it, because bighorn sheep are going to run at each other with 40-pound horns, and they're just going to get tired. And so you're going to try to push the limits, but bighorn sheep know better, because at a certain point they're like, whatever, we're going to walk away, where people try to push the boundaries. So I think animals help us tell the truth, and call each other on the carpet and have some fun and laugh along the way.
Anyone else want to chime in? Okay, so let's talk about dynamics. Working as a family is so unique. It's not common, and it's especially not common at this stage of life, right? So I'm wondering what you all learned about one another's leadership styles while working on a book together, and what maybe surprised you.
I'm gonna say we were all really turn on. Hello. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to say we were all really, really typecast. If you read the first book, or if you've read our bios, or if you know us, very extroverted, and my brother is very not. And that came across a lot when we were writing and when we were talking about these things, because my mom would ask us a question, and the whole book is it's more of a conversation than reading like a textbook. And I personally have never been a big fan of leadership novels, because it feels like I'm reading a textbook, and it's just super dense and just hard language to understand. But the reason that our book is interesting from my perspective is because she wanted it to be a conversation to be more accessible to youth. So we would just literally be talking face to face or texting one of these questions, and then I would give this big long answer, this big long perspective, and she'd be like, all right, you gotta cut it down a little bit, like, just make sure you get to the point. But I would just want to tell all the stories, and Kepler's responses are like 3 words or like a sentence maybe. So it was really funny to just watch that visually lay out just the difference. If you read the book, you will see a paragraph under Tasman and a sentence under Kepler. So that was really entertaining to me.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting to see the differences between just us as people, and they really stood out when we wrote the book.
Yeah, and I will say I employed every tactic possible. Like, you don't actually have to write on the computer. Just text me what you want to say. And so I would get these texts, and then I would just put them in the book, and that was fine.
yeah, I mean, it works. And I think, Tasman, what you were bringing up about the two of you on the spectrum of extroversion being on opposite sides of that spectrum, opposite ends of that spectrum. So I'm wondering, each of you, so from like if we're talking typecasting, from a shy kid perspective, where would you suggest a teenager start? You know, what animal, what story? And Tasman, same for you, but opposite end of the spectrum.
I would just say start with the very first leadership tale, because it's about how you don't have to, the myth of having all leaders be the exact same type A, loud, extroverted, like, person, but I think it really does a good job of getting the point across that all leaders are different.
Yeah, the first tale is, you know, if you talk to people like, what kind of leader you want to be? And people are like, I want to be a great leader. Like, fantastic. What does that mean? Nothing. It means nothing. I mean, that's like, I just saw a big animal. Like, was it a big dinosaur or a big cockroach? Very different, same word. So that's where we start, is like, great means nothing, so that's vampire bats.
Yeah, and then I'd say for us extroverts, being the type A, extroverted, loud person, it's really easy to get pushed into leadership roles a lot. And we love doing that. I mean, I personally love speaking. I love being in a leadership role. So I'm always willing to do that work, but it gets to a point where nobody else really wants to. And if you're not giving yourself a chance to step back, then it just becomes a lot of responsibilities over and over and over again. And so we have a chapter on bighorn sheep, like she was mentioning, which is on resilience, about this myth of the work-life balance, how that's not really a thing. And it's more just learning about yourself and your limits and what you can delegate and what is actually important for you. So yeah, bighorn sheep for extroverts is highly recommend.
And what story feels most personal to you? Because I imagine when you're throwing out ideas for animals, for, you know, like the characteristics, what was that process like, and what story do you feel most attached to?
Okay, so towards the beginning of the book, when we're kind of describing my brother and I's different leadership abilities and our different personalities, we wrote this story about two crafts that we made when we were kids, and they're ladybugs. We were at the Children's Museum, and we just kind of went off together. I don't know how old we were pretty young. 6 and 8. And we just went off together to this room, to an arts and crafts room. And we came back and we presented these crafts to my mom, and I was like, look at mine. It has the correct number of legs evenly spaced, and the spots on the back are alternating colors, and it's beautiful and orderly and perfect. And Kepler made a robot, because that's just who he is, and he doesn't want to follow directions, and he wants to be more creative than that. I don't have the eye for that, but I will make those spots alternating colors at 8 years old. And it was beautiful. So we have that framed and hanging in our house, and she just uses that story a lot to express, like, these are the kids. This is who we are. So I just love that story, and I'm still very proud of my ladybug. It's very pretty. I like it, very pretty. It's very organized.
I'm gonna tell, and then Kepler can add here, is I think one of the things we don't talk about a lot enough in leadership, I should say, is empathy and what that means. And empathy doesn't mean I know exactly how you feel, because that's impossible, but empathy means showing up next to somebody and just being there. And so Kepler is the definition of an empath, because he just knows, like, he can cut. I think he flies under the radar because he's quiet, but he's always paying attention, and he can, like, he's the worst person to watch movies with. Because you're watching a movie and Kepler's like, this is what's going to happen. And then it happens. I'm like, how did you know that? I was like going along. And he's like, how did you not pick up the signs? So he picks up all these signs that I miss. And so when we wrote the chapter on empathy, do you want to tell them I asked you what to write, and do you remember what you said? Okay. He basically said, I don't know what to write because it's just how I am. What do you want me to say? And that's just who he is. So when we think about empathy, empaths, true empaths, they just connect with people. And that's a wonderful leadership skill.
Yeah, and we were talking about this a bit before, but I think both of you too, having trained at the circus school, which is, you know, a big exercise in trust and also acting and performing. And so I'm wondering how that factored into what you've learned about leadership, and also about, you know, like being on a stage, right?
I thought I think circus has been a big impact in my life because, especially being an introvert, I've had to be a ringmaster and a clown, so it's a very different person than I would normally be in my day-to-day life, but I would just have to.
But you do it, and
Yeah.
I saw the two of them too, at the final performance for your final performance, and yeah, it's incredible. It's amazing.
Yeah, honestly, I love circus. I love being in the ring. I can't say enough good things about it. There's nothing like the athleticism of it. There's nothing like the grace and the strength that it takes, and just the teamwork, like you were saying, like the amount of trust that it takes for your web spotter. Like you are trusting that person with your life. You're hanging by your foot 30 feet in the air upside down. It takes a lot of trust for that person standing under you to know that you're going to be coordinated, to know that they've got your back no matter what. And my brother and I were actually in an act together, which is called the Russian Swing. And basically, I'm in charge of providing power to this swing, pumping it up so that he can do all of these cool tricks off of it. But it was really cool for me to watch him get all of this spotlight because it's just so amazing to watch someone do a backflip off of the swing. It was awesome, and especially just watching him be a clown and a ringmaster because I've seen him when he's the funniest person ever, and when he gets to be his goofy, crazy self. But again, as an introvert, not everybody gets to see that. So watching him clown is like the world gets to see the brother that I know. So I loved it, and I miss it terribly.
I love using the word clown as a verb like that. Watching
You should see the clown shoes at our house, and noses and unicycles.
So I can only imagine.
Amazing.
Sounds fun. So Julie, in your experience in your professional life, working in aquariums and zoos, what's something that you witnessed firsthand in the animal world that forever changed your perspective on how humans behave?
I would say when I was a young pup and working at Shed Aquarium, and one of my first jobs was working alongside beluga whales. And beluga whales are really smart, and we had this tank, this habitat that was open. And so we would have people like, oh my gosh, like hold their babies over the tank, like, oh, I'm so sorry, you can't do that. But beluga whales can mimic sounds, and so they would mimic the sound of the dryer going, and so all the trainers would go and try to see if there were still clothes in the dryer. And at one point they shared water space. There was a gate in between, but they shared water space with dolphins, and the dolphins were being trained with whistles, like dog whistles, that we couldn't hear with human ears. And so they were supposed to go down and touch a target and come back up and get rewarded. And the beluga whales, unbeknownst to the trainers, were listening. And so what happened is Bulea, our male dolphin, would go down, touch the target, and then would keep doing it, and then come up for reinforcement. And the dolphin was like, I'm like working hard here. And the trainer's like, I didn't blow the whistle. And then they looked, and there were 5 beluga whales all smashed up against the gate. And I swear they were like, because they were just messing with this dolphin, and it was hysterical. Because we think of dolphins as like the end-all be-all, and they're just animals like anything else. And so I love like watching animals play with each other and be fun, and we've had penguins at the zoo that we kept out of water for a while it was in construction, because we read in some book that this particular species of penguins didn't like the water all that much. And of course they were the first ones in the water when we got the water back in. So it's like animals don't read the books. Right? How many times has your dog done something you're like, gosh, I've never seen them do that. So like, why do we expect people to do the same thing?
Yeah.
Right? We're like, gosh, that person didn't like, I wonder why. I wonder what's wrong with them. We missed that step. So I think right there, I was like, come on, we got some lessons here.
Right.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. What's an animal that you cut that you still think about, that you have a fondness for, sort of like a wisdom outtake?
I think.
Well, it's not quite an outtake. I love giant squid, so I was glad to get giant squid in there. And the one animal that I haven't really talked about, which is kind of surprising to me, is the wolf, because that's my spirit animal. If we think about spirit animals like that, but I really wanted to pull animals we didn't know as much, so I didn't talk to the wolf, but maybe book number 3.
Okay. Yeah, my favorite animal is also a Bengal tiger. So again, pulling the big cats and the big dogs is pretty typical when we make metaphors, so we did not include those, but I also requested sharks, so we got that, which is awesome.
Do you have a spirit animal?
Yeah.
Kepler?
Spirit animal?
Do you have a spirit animal?
Pirates.
I believe so.
Not yet. Too soon to say. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna ask, does anyone have any questions? Anyone else want to? Go ahead.
So you mentioned how unusual and surprising it is to have two teenagers collaborate with the parent project. So my question is, at any time in this project, was there a conflict? Was there a disagreement? And if not, how do you do that?
Yeah.
And if there was, how did you handle it? How did you resolve it?
Right, so how would you, just for the video, how did you resolve any conflict that may have came up while, writing this book? And maybe relate it to a lesson from the book, right?
Well, it's really handy because I'm the perfect mother, and so there was no conflict. And these are the perfect children, so we get along all the time. Why is there so much laughing there? All right, I'll let you all start, and then I'll add some things. Any conflict or anything you did?
You were nodding it.
Well, well, do you want to start? It's yes, of course. There was. I don't know if it was conflict, but there was it was really important to me from the beginning that I didn't, like Tasman talked about being typecast, which is true. Like I didn't want to pigeonhole them into doing what I do, but I really wanted them to leverage their own words. So we had this balance between like, hey, there's a deadline. And they were like, yeah, but I have this assignment. Also, I want to see my friends and we have circus. And I'm like, yes, but there's a deadline. And so we framed it as, this is the family business. Some people work in a restaurant. Some people work on a farm. Y'all happen to live in a family that has an author speaking business. So I need your help. So that's how we framed it up. But there was still conflict because they didn't see it. And then I would show them the edits from my editor, and they were like, oh my gosh, who's Erin Brown? Because she has a lot to say. There's like 500 track changes, and it's chapter 1. So that was the other thing. They had to get used to their words being critiqued, not by a teacher. And we had 5 different editors. So 5 different people having opinions on your words can be a lot. So I think those were 2 of the things.
Yeah, and also, as I mentioned earlier, I'm not typically one for leadership books, and I don't think Kepler is either, so this is completely new territory for us. Like, we've obviously been blessed to have been raised by a mom who's super in this world and has taught us a lot, but the things that we've learned are like on a walk or at the breakfast table. Like, it has not been through an actual manual, a how-to textbook, which, as we talk about, the book doesn't exist. But it was really interesting to step into something that we're totally unfamiliar with, and it was really cool how she was phrasing it. Like she mentioned, she really did text us like, hey, here's my question, send me a response. And then she would just type it into the book. But it didn't have to be a perfect word for word, here is your perfect answer to this perfect question. It was, what are your thoughts as Tasman? What are your thoughts as Kepler? So that was, I think, helped a lot with any conflict that we might have had, because it didn't feel as pressured. And obviously we did still have deadlines, and we did have different opinions when it came to the cover or the title or the subtitle. Like, that took a minute to decide, and that was super fun.
Oh yeah.
But
yeah, I was like, how about this subtitle? They're like, it's so boring. I'm like, how about that? They're like, we're never gonna pick it up. Like, okay, this is really helpful because I'm my target audience here. And I will say, both of my kids at times in their lives, and then I'll let Kepler speak to this too, that they would say, we need to dial down the motivational speaker voice, Mom, please. We don't need another lesson.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of built in. You want to talk about what it's like to write? Okay. Okay.
Well, I think it's helpful. It's written for youth, right? So you have to have some youth involved in that. So that it makes sense why it would also be sort of like a less traditional route too. Okay. Do you have a question? Go ahead.
What was your favorite animal while you were writing?
So favorite animal while you were writing the book.
All right, I'll start. My favorite animal while writing the book was the barnacles. Because probably a lot of people don't even know barnacles are animals. And then probably, if you're picking up a book on leadership, you'd probably think, I'm going to read about lions or bears or elephants, probably not barnacles. So I wanted to talk about an animal that people didn't know was an animal. And I really, really liked to talk about them because I talk about them with failure, because we all fail, but we don't always think that's okay. But barnacles live in an environment that has water sometimes and not water sometimes. And that's just how they're built. So that's what I wanted to say to all of us, you and me, that you're gonna fail, I'm gonna fail. You're gonna mess up, I'm gonna mess up. And all of it is just how we're built. And you're gonna survive, even though sometimes it feels like you're not.
I would say I like the poison dart frogs because I felt that when I think of leadership and I think of animals that are connected to leadership, my first thought is not poison dart frogs, but I thought it was really cool to see how they would connect to leadership.
I also liked the barnacles for pretty much the same reasons. They're a super unique animal, and they're really, really interesting. And we have a great song about barnacles that we listen to all the time, about how they stand on their heads. So that was really fun to just sing about them while writing this chapter. And oh God.
I'm a barnacle standing on my head.
He's not participating. Go ahead.
I got two questions. Number one, if a person wanted to write a book, how to get started? And number two, if you could summarize in 1 or 2 sentences the greatest takeaway from this book, what would it be?
When people ask me about writing a book, I always tell them to start with their stories. I don't care if it's nonfiction, fiction, whatever it is, because people get stuck into how they're going to start and they get stuck into how it's going to end. And really just start with your stories, and then how you want to stitch them together will depend on who the audience is. And then also be really clear that writing a book is not for the faint of heart, and you have to know why you want to write a book. Like when I was submitting book proposals and I ended up talking to the publisher I ended up going with, and my executive editor said, you know, people always come to us and say, like, I have this book idea, but not every idea is a good idea. And so that's important, that you've got to be really clear why you're writing a book, because it's going to take you a lot of time and effort and blood and sweat and tears and chocolate and cats on your lap and a couple glasses of wine every now and then. But that's really important.
And as far as summarizing it in a couple words, I would say, great means nothing, lead like you.
What's your biggest takeaway from the book?
Okay, we'll keep thinking. Go ahead.
I am their grandmother. I'm Julie's mother. And when I read the book, I didn't even have to know it was Kepler writing his part or Tasman writing their part. Their personalities just came through. And of course, Julie has always been, from age 4, she's been a leader, you know, but in a quiet way. Julie was a very quiet child, actually, but a leader. But I even told Julie that a few of the stories that she told, I've known her for 50 plus years, and I didn't. and a lot of the stories she told, I would say, when did that happen? So for me, as you know, knowing them, I didn't even have to know what the byline was.
Yeah. And I think that says a lot too. It is a unique book in that having 3 distinct voices involved, and they are 3 distinct voices. It's not, you know, paraphrasing or, you know, mixing up the words. It's 3 distinct voices.
Yeah, I mean, we really and truly did speak portions of this book.
Yeah.
Like when, as a couple of the questions are more interview style. When you'll get into, there's a section where she asked both of us, like, think of 3 people that are leaders, like the first people you think of when you think of leaders. And now she just asked us a couple questions, and we were literally standing on our back porch with our cats and just chatting. Like, she'd ask me a question, and I would speak my answer, and she would type my words. So it really is my voice, and it really is Kepler's voice, it really is Mom's voice. Like, this is just exactly how we talk, this is how we communicate, and this is how we are as people, we are as leaders, as extroverts, introverts, somewhere in between. So yeah, truly is our voices.
And the last thing that, I'm a longtime educator, and I've worked with kids that are much like Kepler, and you know they have so much to say, so you have to give their voice a chance. Where many times, they'll get drowned out by other students in the room or whatever. And so I love this in thinking of the kids that are gonna read this book, that might give them a lot of hope, that I'm fine, I got a lot to say.
Yeah, I'd love to tell a story. Just turn this off. Sorry. I'd love to tell a story about that too. Is that one of the, when you asked where the idea came from originally, like when I was a mother many years ago when Kepler was only in first grade, one of the things that happened is that Tasman all the time gets complimented on the fact that she's a leader. People will say to me, oh my gosh, she's such a leader, and she is, and it's wonderful, and I'm so glad people recognize that. They don't often say that to Kepler, and that is frustrating to me. I'm not sure it's frustrating to you, but it's frustrating to me, because he's not exhibiting the stereotypical leadership qualities. However, he leads in such a different way, and we need to be thankful for everybody who leads along the spectrum. But when he was in first grade, the story I can tell you to most directly illustrate this point is I went to a birthday party. And so I'm at this birthday party, as all of us have been to birthday parties in the past. And it totally does. I was at a birthday party, and these mothers came to me who I didn't know. And they came running up to me and said, oh my gosh, we're so thankful for Kepler. And I was like, oh my gosh, me too. Why? And they were like, oh my gosh, well, when our kids are terrorized by the bully at school, we just tell them to do exactly what Kepler does. And I'm like, oh, I'm so glad. That's fantastic. I'm so glad to hear that. Can you tell me what he does so I can reinforce that at home? Because that's really important, and I'm so glad that he's showing leadership skills in that way. And they're like, yeah, absolutely. So what happens is on the playground, the bully goes from kid to kid to kid and terrorizes them, and then he gets to Kepler. And when he goes up to Kepler, he starts his thing, and then Kepler just looks at him in the face, and he goes, ah! And the bully runs away. And I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. So I get in the car with Kepler on the way home from the birthday party, and I'm like, how was the birthday party? Fine. Is there a bully at school? Yeah. Oh, I can help. I know some things. I can talk to the principal, to the teacher. Do you need me to show up for you? Do you need me to help? Nope, I got it. And I was like, okay. And had I never heard from those moms, because he just flies under the radar, but he's just super comfortable showing up for him and other people, and that's leadership.
And it takes a lot of courage too. And I think sometimes people think courage is loud, like a lion's roar, and sometimes it's not at all, but it's courage just the same. So that is a very good example of that. And what other questions? I saw another answer. Yes, go ahead.
5 editors? I always wonder if there's like a science editor or a content editor.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
I want that job.
Yeah, there is. Well, and to be fair, like when I first started working with my publishing house, I didn't even know there were all these different kinds of editors until I wrote my first book, and then I was like, oh, thank God, because you all did different things. But I brought the science editor into the process because as a science person, at heart, I'm like, I cannot do wrong by the science. And in the first book, some of my science was wrong because mangroves, for example, something I'd learned about mangroves, the science had changed in 25 years, and I would not have caught it because I haven't really taught about mangroves in a long time, but she caught it, and I'm like, oh gosh, thank goodness. And so same thing, especially sharks. We have a lot of shark scientists history in the family, and so I wanted to do right by sharks. But yeah, we needed good science editors because I was not going to do wrong by the facts.
And not every book has that. So that is saying something about your book. There are plenty of books that are nonfiction that don't have as diligent of editors, And we do have Julie's first book available downstairs too, Wisdom from the Wild. What other questions do we have?
I have a question. So for this book is for the youth. What would be, like if anybody was thinking about getting this book for a gift for a youth person, what age, when would they want to give it to them? Like any type of event? Like how would they think about reading it? Like what do you think?
What's the entryway?
Yeah, what is it most helpful for in their life age span or big life events?
And I want to hear all of your perspectives on this one.
Yeah. I was gonna say.
Well, I know we've said our target age range is 15 to 21. correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, which I think is a pretty good gap. It's just a little bit younger than Kepler, any younger than that, and I think these ideas aren't going to hit as close to home. And the lessons are really targeted towards youth, so 21 and up can read the older book.
Right.
But 15 to 21.
We were
is our
talking about the
age
range,
range.
like when it was like, what did your friends think about it? Like that. Okay. What do you think?
Yeah, or like a circumstance in which it would be a good idea to give someone a gift.
Anytime.
Portions of
A
it.
true salesman, though.
He's an
That is a good
entrepreneur.
answer. Anytime. Anytime.
Yeah, well, you know, and I appreciate the question because I'll add to the fact that one of the reasons why I put them, one of the reasons why they look similar is that hopefully it can level the playing field so adults and youth can have conversations about leadership that are equal and not like this. So that's one of the things. I really didn't think that people who loved science so much would love the book. I was a little worried that they would think I dumbed down the science too much. So that's, again, not the case because I had the science editor, but I've been really pleased to see, like basically I wrote these books with my kids, and the first book, what I would have wanted to read as a kid, right? Because I didn't connect with leadership lessons from the Ritz-Carlton. I didn't connect with leadership lessons from the military. All due respect to all of those authors and all those books, but I wanted to learn about things that I was interested in. So I'm hoping if you have a young person in your life, or if you are a young person and you really kind of feel like you haven't found your groove, or you just don't feel seen when it comes to either A, being told you're a leader, or B, that your interests don't align with a typical like MBA track, you can still learn about leadership skills. And oh my gosh, do you need to? Because I've worked with physical therapists at a hospital, and so they're the STEM leaders, right? And they told me all the time there's conflict because the MBA leaders come in and they look down on the STEM leaders because they don't have the traditional business spot. And I'm like, no, your STEM lens is so amazing, because scientists, if you talk to scientists and you ask them a question, and I love when I say, what are you most interested in? And they will say to me, the next question. And so think about that with leadership. Like, leadership is not a period at the end of a sentence. It's an ellipses, right? So leaders get so stuck on like, I have the answer. I'm like, do you? No, you just have the answer for right now. So it's all the above. And I think, especially with what they were saying, it's been also picked up by AP language teachers and English teachers looking at these three voices and thinking about nonfiction books in that space, which is really, I think, beneficial too. So Tasman had that experience.
We read it in AP Lang, and we had the pleasure of having her come in and talk to us, but it was really interesting actually to read my own writing through a scholastic lens, but we were looking at rhetorical devices used and how each of us were able to communicate effectively, and like she was saying, that you can actually tell the different voices without having the titles because we just write so differently. So yeah, it's definitely been analyzed a lot of different ways, and there's a lot of different interpretations for it. But yeah, science lovers, interested in science, you don't have to have any background knowledge, or you can have all the background knowledge. Like, just, there's something for you to learn here, and there's a different interpretation in this book for sure. It's, I've personally never seen a leadership lessons from nature book done this way. So there's something for everybody in here for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's a good book for transitions too. So if somebody's going off to college, or starting a new grade, or starting to take a class, or move, any kind of transition, I feel like it's really helpful for. But also, we talk about leadership, that's what the book is about, I get it. But I feel like it's also a lot about collaboration and just how to be a person. Yeah. So sure, it's leadership, but as we're talking about how leadership looks so different on each person, so you might think of, when I would often think about leadership books as a kid, as a younger person, I would think about them as the books that would say, here's how to get ahead. And if you want to be, the CEO of this business, that's the type that would read a leadership book. But this book is so different from that. Like, sure, that type totally read this book, but just people who are interested in how to be a better person or a better version of themselves. It's like a self-help book for young people that is not at all preachy, not at all condescending, which I think is rare for a book in this genre, in that space for young people.
Yeah, well, also, we mentioned a lot that leadership is different between people, but it's also different between scenarios. Leadership doesn't mean sitting in front of a stage or speaking on a stage and being in charge of a big group, being a CEO. You can be a leader as a member of a classwork group. Like, you don't have to be in the spotlight to be considered a leader. You are a leader in every single portion of what you do. Like, even in just the three of us writing this book, we're all leading a different part of this, and we're all taking charge of different areas. I mean, cover design alone, Kepler took the lead in that because he has this creative eye that my mom and I don't, because we're just more analytically minded and he's more artistic than us. So just even in that, leadership doesn't have to be this big scary title. Like, it's just, you can lead in little ways in every single portion of your life. So that's another big thing that we hit on.
Yeah, totally. Go ahead.
So to follow up on that, and this is a provocative question, you know how I like to ask challenging questions. If everyone's a leader and no one's a follower, that leads to chaos. And the school of fish needs a leader, and the leader may change from individual to individual. A flock of birds, you have a leader and you have followers. Do you need to write a book about how to be a good follower?
Maybe a follow-up?
Yeah. You're like so everyone has leadership skills, but not everyone is assuming the leadership role at the same time. That's how I would differentiate that. Like, stop looking at it, like, we look at it as a personality trait rather than a critical thinking skill. So, you know, Tasman's going to be a leader when she goes and is leading the science club at school, but Kepler's going to be a leader if he recognizes that there's an entrepreneurship opportunity in that club, and he's going to take charge because Tasman's brain doesn't think like that necessarily. So, yes, everybody's capable of being a leader, but not everybody's leading at the same time.
I was just going to follow up on the point of the 15 to 21. That's often the time that a young person gets their first job, you know, as like a bagger at Publix. And so they have to kind of step out of the nest. And if they have these different personality traits, they may feel insecure. And I totally agree with your idea about most leadership books point you, they say number 1, number 2, number 3, and if you fail on number 2, there are no ways you're going to get to number 3.
Right.
And so I've always felt like they were kind of talking down to us as opposed to taking us alongside.
Right, and I think this book makes you, as a reader, it makes you curious. And I think, like, I remember being a teenager, and you kind of, it's hard not to feel like you know a lot, maybe more than you actually know. And a book like this also makes you interested in things you didn't know you were interested in before, like the poison dart frog. Like, I don't care, I didn't think I cared about them. But then you read about it, yeah, and then you just get more interested, you want to know more, and it opens up these other doors and makes you think think more metaphorically in their own lives, which I think is helpful. Any other questions? Okay, go ahead.
After the follow-up book, can we have a book with your mom?
Oh yeah, right?
Adorable.
Get 3 generations involved?
Right?
I know.
Yeah, they show up in ways that they don't even know.
Well, in the first book, she has a story about spiders, which is about me. My fear of spiders. Snakes, I'm okay with.
I call spiders nature's yellow light when it comes to change, because even if you love spiders like me, and the spider were to walk across here, I would still be like, oh, okay, that's cool. Keep on going. That's not the case with my mom. She would faint.
Okay, the last thing I'll say, and we'll use this as the segue into the signing, and of course there's cookie cake. But we were chatting a little bit before this, and I was asking them about like books that they read recently and like a book that may have moved them, and they were all like talking together, even though it was like an individual question. And don't worry, I'm not going to ask the question, but I'm going to talk about the moment instead. And in that moment, Julie, like, turned to Kepler, was like, oh yeah, but this book, everybody was conferring with each other, and Julie had said that you will read books that they're reading just so you can, of course, better relate and you can talk to them, which I think is amazing. And I also think with what you have all done individually, Julie, with the first book, but then together with the second one, is I think that the original book is a good companion for the one for youth. And so in giving the book for youth, to a young person, I would also encourage you to get the original book and read it yourself, because that's an incredible book that we haven't talked much about today, but it's wonderful and what started this whole thing. So you all should be very proud, and we'll give them a big round of applause. Okay, so like I said, just go downstairs, grab your book if you have the book already, and you guys can take, I'll let Julie explain the lay of the land, because there's some props and all sorts of things.
Yeah, here, we go grab a couple props real quick. All right.